Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had a good lunch and engaging discussion within your syndicate. We are honored today to have Dr. Yose Rizal Damuri, the Executive Director of the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS of Indonesia, for the distinguished speaker lecture. CSIS Indonesia is a close partner of RSIS. We are deeply appreciative to Dr. Yose for taking time and in accepting our invitation to be here in Singapore. Let me just give a quick overview of Dr. Yose's background. He received his Bachelor of Economics from the University of Indonesia. He continued his study at the National Centre for Development Studies in ANU, Australia, Canberra, and got his Masters of Economics of Development. He received his PhD in International Economics from the Graduate Institute of International Studies in Geneva, Switzerland. His research focuses on international trade, regional integration and globalization of value chain, with a keen interest in examining the political economic aspects of international economic governance and the multilateral trading system. With numerous authored academic articles on these subjects, his most recent interest has been on the implications of major power rivalries on the global and regional economic landscape. He's also very active in many networks of research institutes in East Asia, such as the Asia Pacific Research Network on Trade, IRIA Research Institute Network, and Think20, the think tank network of G20 countries. He serves as a co-chair Indonesia National Committee of Pacific Economic Cooperation and is active in various policy forums in Indonesia, including as the research coordinator of Indonesia Service Dialogue, a forum dedicated for the development of services sector in Indonesia. Today, Dr. Yose will speak on the complexity of global economy and geopolitical dynamics. It is a timely topic. The world we are in now has become a hugely uncertain one, and the economic space for all of us is becoming smaller. It is also increasing very hard for the small countries to maneuver between the big powers. In Southeast Asia, the national governments are primarily preoccupied with economic concerns: how to feed our people, how to provide for them, how to ensure growth and prosperity. These are basic policy questions, but fundamental ones. We are sharply reminded in our region by our vulnerabilities during the pandemic and from the fallout arising from the outbreak of wars in Ukraine and now in the Middle East. On that note, let me pass the floor to Dr. Yose.
Very good afternoon to you all. I'm actually quite nervous because I forgot. See, I'm quite nervous. I forgot to bring the clicker here because I rarely talk in front of military officers, especially when talking about the geopolitical dynamics and the interlinkage between geopolitical issues with the economic issues. Because I'm an economist by training, for sure, as Pa Adrian's also already explained to us. I normally talk about this geopolitical dynamics in front of people who have backgrounds, economic background. For example, in the last 6 years, I've been teaching in the training programs of Bank Indonesia. Bank Indonesia is the central bank of Indonesia. So in the last 6 years, I've been teaching about geopolitical situations and geoeconomic issues and how those issues affect economic situations. I usually spend some time actually try to convince those central bankers that geopolitical issues actually matters, actually quite important for them to pay attention in order to analyze and in order to understand the current economic situations. But now I'm talking in front of military officers and also persons dealing with security. So I think I also need to spend some time to try to convince you that economic issues also matters when we're talking about security issues and military issues. Here I give you 5 reasons at least why you might find that a presentation from an economist like me actually worth 1.5 hours of your time. Hopefully, it can convince you on the importance of economic issues. This is at least 5 reasons, but there are, of course, many other reasons that you might find quite important. I don't need to tell you again about the connections, strong connections between budget constraints and defense spending, for example. They are all depends on economic resources. Another considerations as I think that we also need to pay attention is that coming from the economic interdependence and supply chains that often being regarded as the source of vulnerabilities. We do know that this interdependence is getting more intensive. And it brought efficiency and development. But coming from security point of view, perhaps this is also another source of vulnerabilities that we need to deal with. We should also note the growing incidence of the use of economics instrument in order to achieve foreign policy and security objectives. A lot more and more countries use economic policy and economic instruments, economic measures, in order for them to deal with the countries that they think being threatened. We are going to look at all those issues. I believe in other sessions, in previous sessions, you also have heard about it, so this is not something new, but hopefully my presentations would also add some value into your understandings on how the interlinkage or the interactions between economic issues and geopolitical, as well as perhaps on the security issues. And to start the presentations, I think I should also mention that I really like the themes of this year APPSMO, navigating complexities, because it's when we're looking at the economy during the last 4 or 5 decades, you can see that the complexity also has risen in this global economy, and it can be, it has transformed massively and make diverse economy ties to intricate and complex network. One indicator of the complexity of the global economy is we can see from how closely linked the world has become through trade. And this is just one indicator, but you can see how far the global economy has been linked to each other. This trend actually started not something new. It started after the World War II, but really picked up speed in the 1980s, helped by stable global political situations, advances in technology, and also global policy arrangements. This period, for sure, coincided with the end of the Cold War, which further accelerated the integrations of global markets. And to look at a little bit deeper on this trend, I think you can see that that supply chains that once spanned only across few countries now stretch across continents. Companies started scattered in the 1990s, their productions, they started the productions across the globe, creating the complex global value chains we see today. These diagrams basically show us how the network of trade and supply chains become more connected, more concentrated and dense. Even if you compare it between 1998 and 2019, you can see how concentrated this and how getting dense this network. And of course, this also adds the complexity of these relations. Another thing, in addition to this complex supply chain network, we have also seen that the financial markets that experience a parallel transformations. Countries started to remove capital controls in the 80s and then continued in the 90s, so that investment started flowing across borders like never before. The global FDI flow, for example, right now approximately around $1.5 trillion US dollars per year, and it's already it's basically 20 times bigger compared to the situations in the 1990s. So we have seen this massive interlinkage between economy across the continents during the last 30 or 40 years. And it is facilitated not only by technological progress. We've discussed about technological progress before in the previous sessions, and see the threat from these advanced technological advancements. But during the 1990s and also early 2000, actually, it facilitated more interdependence across economies. For example, by reducing the cost of communications as well as the cost of transportations. And in addition to that, we have seen also policy harmonization that take place at the global level, at the multilateral level. For example, I show you here the global tariff reduction and how this reduction in the last 30 years actually correlated strongly with the value of global trade. And it facilitates more and more economic activities across all those economies. Global economics governance also developed quite well. The multilateral trading systems under the WTO, for example, also provide a significant contribution. It contributes, one estimations mentions about the contributions of the WTO and multilateral trading systems, which account for 2% to 18% of the members' GDP growth during the last 20 years. So it makes the economies more open, and more open economies actually to gain more than the less open ones. So again, all these developments basically has resulted to the global economic developments, and with that also come the global economics shift. The diagrams on the left, on the left show us the number of low-income countries that has been declining quite significantly since the 1990s, facilitated more partly with the interdependence of global economy. While on the other hand, the high-income countries is getting bigger. More countries now already graduated to high-income countries or graduated to upper middle-income countries, upper middle-income economies. This is one indication that this kind of developments during the last 30 years, since the 1990s or late 80s, actually already brings a lot of benefits to the global economy and the prosperity across continents, across the globe. But the interconnectedness between those countries also resulted to several more and more complexities. With these opportunities, actually, come growing complexities. As more nations integrated into global trade networks, each country's economy become more dependent to each other, and there is a big a global shift. Some countries, for example, those who manage to emerge as richer countries now demand more from the global governance. Some countries also try to get more aspirations and more interests, their own interests, to carry out their own interests into global governance. So this basically add more complexity into the relations between nations, between economies in the world. And of course, it does not end there. Here we see that there are several trends in the making, actually. One of them is about the concern for the environment and climate change that are becoming more central to the global economic conversations at the moment. This is also not add more layer of complexity into the global economic relations at the moment. And of course, as the world more connected, the role of geopolitics also add another layer of complexity, and it make the situations even more difficult to manage in the future. Let me talk a little bit. I don't think I need to. I'd like to talk a little bit about all those issues, but focus more on the two new factors, which is climate and environmental concerns and geopolitical tensions. But I believe in the previous sessions, yesterday's sessions, we also already discussed a lot about climate change and its consequences from to various aspects of life. So I'm not going to discuss it again in order to save the times. But I just want to highlight one issue from related to the climate change, which is the financings needed in order to fight the climate change and to do more on the climate actions. The financing requirement is really high. In 2021, for example, the need for financing reached $3.5 trillion US. It's mostly required in developing and least developed countries, but the disbursements was only 20% of it. Only around $650,000 US out of $3.5 trillion. And that mostly took place in developed countries. Again, it creates new constraints actually in the global economic situations. And it might affect the relations between countries from different backgrounds. Because who's gonna pay for climate actions? If this financing need is so big, then who gonna be responsible to finance these climate actions? Especially when you come under the narrative of climate justice, which implies that bigger emitters, not only the current emitters, but also historically bigger emitters, should bear greater responsibility and contribute more to the climate actions. So it's, again, it is getting more complicated as the global economic shift, global economic dynamics is taking place. So this one, I just want to attract your attention on this issue when we're dealing with the geopolitical issues, especially from the financing requirements of climate action. But for the rest of the For the rest of my presentations, I would like to focus more on the geopolitical situations. And I believe Professor Chia yesterday already systematically to explain to us why current geopolitical issues also affect the, many other aspects, including also on the global economy. So now I would talk more on how it has affected the global economy and adding layer of complexity against. As we know, there are many open conflicts are currently taking place in the Middle East, as well as in Europe, and also escalated tensions everywhere else, including in our region here. But this, of course, has impacted the economic situations and economic relations, as well as the supply chains disruption. Everybody now already talk about supply chains consequences on those open conflict. But it's not only about the conflict itself, but rather, but we can also see the tension arise from the attitudes of different nations. Like, for example, if we look at the G7 economy, G7 communique, we can see that this security has become the focus of attentions in the recent G7 economy. It is mentioned more frequently compared to 8 years ago. The meaning has also broadened from traditional interpretations to include many new areas, even like data infrastructure and cloud security, or critical infrastructure security. Those have never been heard before when we're talking about security issues. But now it had been included, especially by G7 countries, the US and its allies. Yeah, so it's also often associated to specific concerning countries, like the China, for example, and also Russia. Yeah, North Korea and many other countries, they are regarded as opposite to their values and norms. So this kind of attitude, you can see it from the statements, from the communique of many G7 leaders, and as well as many other leaders. But it also has been reflected in various economic policies. During the hyper-globalization era of the 1990s and early 2000s, we've seen that economic policies were set based on multilateral principles. Currently, more and more policies are set based on self-interest and unilateral decisions. This can be observed clearly on various industrial policy implemented by many countries, especially the US, the European Union, Japan, and all of course, China included. In the international development study, what we refer as industrial policy is that government efforts to shape the economic by targeting specific industries, firm or economic activities, often by providing either subsidies, protective regulations, or research and development support. So the industrial policy that I refer here is quite specific on the government efforts and government support. And it is something new for many economies, especially in the developed countries. If you see the economic policy 10 years ago or 15 years ago, we don't have that kind of subsidy. We find it in China, but not in the US or not in the European Union. But now, the US government, for example, is allocating 39 billion in funding from the 280 billion CHIPS Act to support the development of advanced semiconductor manufacturing capability. In the other area on the sustainable development, it also target 370 billion in subsidies for clean energy under Inflation Reduction Act in order to gain industrial competitiveness in sustainable industries. So those industrial policies basically also put a lot of pressures to global economy, and again, as Adrian also mentioned, perhaps attract another questions on how the smaller countries like Southeast Asian countries, Southeast Asian economies respond to that kind of unilateral policy setting. And unilateral policy setting is not only limited to the positive kind of like a supportive policy, but also on the more intensive use of weaponizations of economic policy, more intensive use of economic policies that intended to punish their economic partners as part of their security strategy. It is started, of course, it was started by the US in trade war with China, but it is now becoming more normal practice, not only between developed and developing countries, but even between developing countries, among developing countries itself, often over minor issues. Just I will give you examples when in 2019, when Malaysian Prime Minister at that time, Mahathir Mohamad, said something about Kashmir, and then it attracted a negative sentiment in India, and India basically curbed its import from Malaysia on palm oil production that produced by Malaysia. Of course, my own country get that benefit from the actions, because Indonesia is also another big producers of palm oil during that time. But it shows you how even from minor incidents of a small statement can be used as a reasons to weaponize economic policy, and it becomes rampant. It becomes more and more intensive nowadays. At the same time, we have also witnessed that many global economic order set up in the last decades are not really prepared to deal with such complexity of global economic facing at the moment. Multilateral development banks, for example, such as World Bank, ASEAN Development Bank, they are not prepared to face the challenge from inequalities and also climate change. They don't know, they don't have resources actually to deal with those kind of issues. The multilateral trading system under WTO was not designed to deal with the vulnerabilities of supply chain. International financial systems under IMF, for example, also does not accommodate the emerging economic powers of developing countries. I think one of the issues of our global economic orders, our global economic governance at the moment, is that they were not created to deal with competition. They foster cooperations. Cooperations was basically their nature, their characteristics. So when it comes to more competitive global economy, right, like what we're having at the moment with the geopolitical dynamic, geopolitical issues becomes more important, they lose their effectiveness. You can see the credibility, how the credibility of WTO, for example, has been declining on the diagram on the right. This shows you the number of requests for consultations from members. They are falling quite significantly, mostly because members do not see the points of taking their issues to the WTO. So they resolve in other ways, sometimes a more bilateral way, but most of times they just do unilateral actions when they have difficulties on trade relations. So again, these weakenings of global economic orders also add more complexity of the current global economic activities. All those, of course, increase risk of the economic fragmentations. The global economic there tend to shift away from the integrated, interdependent global economy, and instead we are seeing the rise of more isolated, regional and competitive economic blocs. These situations may resemble the situations during the previous Cold War. We still have in our memory until late 1980s, we were trapped in the Cold War situations. Although if we have this Cold War 2.0, we have a different kind of consequences to the global economy and also the global situations in general. Because now the global economy has been so complex and it's no longer, the stakes are very high if we have this kind of fragmentations and if we have the Cold War 2.0. Rivalries may not only take place only in geopolitical issues, in security issues like the Cold War, but it also would take place in economic issue, the technological advancements, as well as financial issues. So we have more a complex Cold War situation if the situation is getting worse in the future. And when we talk about economic fragmentations, basically, this is my view on the economic fragmentations, the kind of like the situations where Cold War 2.0 is happening on the global economic situation. And global economic fragmentation basically has many facets. It can take form of technological decoupling, for example, in which countries are increasingly developing their own technology standards, leading to less interoperability needed for innovations. I think the last sessions was very informative to discuss about all those these the consequences from technological decoupling. But it not only the technological decouplings, we also will see supply chain realignments, as many countries and business now aim to reduce their reliance, their dependence on long and complex supply chains, but rather adopting a strategy of friendshoring and diversifications. We also see stronger demands from emerging economies actually to play more important roles in financial systems. And the use of local currency, for example, in order to reduce dependency of US dollar is taking place at the moment. Right now, many countries try to have trade transactions or international transactions being conducted under their own local currencies, no longer using using the US dollar. It's still very small compared to the whole transactions, the whole economic international transactions, but it's increasing. And it would change the face of international financial systems when we have more and more countries, more and more transactions using the local currency. And since the global governance is less effective, we see also economic rules and norms are set up at regional level or among like-minded economies. This might lead to higher costs of international economic activities. This also increase uncertainty since business need to deal with different kind of policy environment and also reduce incentive for more innovations in the future. And this is not just hypothetical situation. It's already taking place, actually. Like, for example, we have seen during the last 3 or 4 years, the trade between countries among belong to the same bloc actually is tend to increase faster than the trade with the between bloc. And this also has led to greater fragmentations of global supply chains, while investments started to divert away from China and also to go to other countries, especially in these regions as well as in South Asia. So that kind of implications also has been taking place in the global economic situations. But the most worrying implications of economic fragmentations actually comes to the fact that it also increased geopolitical tension itself. The last deglobalizations, they take place almost 100 years ago, and ended up with Great War, with World War II. That was the last deglobalizations that we had. Last century. This is the diagram from Professor Kindleberger's, and it's quite classic literature actually. It shows spiral drop of world trade that was happening in the 1930s, and the global trade was dropping very significantly and in a systematic manner, and we know how it ended. In 1939, it ended as a war, World War II. So the current economic fragmentation has also potential to further escalate global geopolitical sentiment. Although, of course, this is the worst scenario and may not take place, of course, but we cannot neglect the possibility of other types of conflict. There is a stronger feedback loop between economic fragmentations and geopolitical situations. And like for example, the higher possibility of proxy conflicts and the risk of conflicts in many other parts of the world that might not be in a global scale, but rather several conflicts that are happening across the world. Yesterday, we also hear that domestic politics also play very important roles. And economic fragmentations actually increase the tendency of economic nationalisms and populism. And this, for sure, will deepen geopolitical divides and reduce intentions for international cooperations. While at the same time, we also need to have a greater international cooperation. The multilateral governance that has been developed in the last 80 years might become less and less effective, making us having no effective mechanisms to deal with those potential conflicts. So I believe that all these kind of situations would also affect our regions of Southeast Asia. I would like to, before concluding my presentations, I'd like to draw your attentions also to the implications to Southeast Asia. And we've discussed about the implications for Southeast Asia yesterday, but I just want to add some more. That on the one hand, Southeast Asian economies tend to gain more benefit from the current situations. I think the previous session saw us several headlines news that these regions tend to get the benefit, including also some economies in South Asia. But this is not. This would not be a permanent benefit or permanent advantage that we can get. The thing is, it's just about the time that we will see also those restrictive measures would be, those fragmentations would also have implications to our regions. By having more restrictive and protective measures intended to reduce the circumvent actions of trade circumventions or investment circumventions, like we also already have. We also hear already how the EV from Mexico now is also getting a very high tariff, very high import duty, because most of the EVs actually come originally from China. That kind of things would also take place in Southeast Asia. And more importantly, this kind of economic fragmentations may also threaten the unity of ASEAN and the stability in these regions. That has been the fundamental elements to support the developments in these regions. It is now quite apparent that the regions have becoming a battleground for influence between major powers. We don't see much open conflicts so far, but it might go to that directions in the future. The technological decouplings might also limit access to technologies depending on political alignments, and it would affect the economic growth and development, as well as our aspirations to become more prosperous, to become prosper regions in the future. So all those kind of things, in my opinions, need to get more attentions from Southeast Asian countries. And in fact, I also have a kind of strong opinions actually that ASEAN or Southeast Asian countries can play more important roles in order to reduce or to make the current economic fragmentations and geopolitical problems more manageable. For example, ASEAN, I think, is the only platforms in this region that has agencies, that has mechanisms to bridge the conflicting interests from various parties. ASEAN has the East Asia summit, for example, that can be a good platform for communication and for discussions from various parties, various parties related to the economic fragmentations as well as geopolitical issues at the moment. In economy, ASEAN also has the regional comprehensive economic partnership. This is a comprehensive agreement that requires political cohesion to realize that benefit, and that in turn also can provide greater geopolitical understanding. It can be used more properly. Right now there are some efforts, some initiative in order to make ASEAN speak louder to confront those geopolitical issues. And ASEAN is also quite lucky because it has new, you can say, new generations of leaders. For example, from my country, Indonesia, we will have President Prabowo Subianto be inaugurated in a few days, and he's more foreign policy, more articulate in foreign policy, and then can also promote ASEAN to deal with this issue. We also have Mr. Lawrence Wong from Singapore, and to some extent, we can also get greater involvement from Malaysia under the leadership of Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, and also from President Marcos in the Philippines. So I think that kind of situations make ASEAN can play, or has at least has potentials to play more important roles in bridging the conflicting interests, at least in the regions, to make the situations more manageable in this region itself. But with that, I end my presentations. I'm happy to take questions and to discuss all these things further. Thank you very much.
The floor is now open. At least, Pak Yose, you give us a different perspective of the economic challenges. After, for me, the last few days, I've become more depressed. All right. I'm waiting for a bit of good news. I do share your sentiments that ASEAN can do more, but it's always the question of how we can do more. We have a window opportunity in terms of the new leaders. We shall see over the next few months whether these new leaders themselves can come up with some new ideas and not be limited within the former ASEAN system. So can we have some questions, and let's make this a bit more interactive. Professor Jing Han. Which slide?
The slide about openness of globalization. I think it's the first chart you have. Is that possible?
Can we see the slides again?
Yeah, back. No, this one. Yeah, just keep going. Keep going. Oh, no, sorry. Okay, the one just passed. No, keep going. Keep going. Back. This one. Well, I think I just want to. I think Mr. Tan, you just mentioned about you become pessimistic and then become more optimistic. But I think the moment when I saw this one, I think I kind of become optimistic about it, right? Imagining if you see those kind of up and downs, go back to history, and you have like so many wars happening, First World War, Second World War, Great Depression, and those were the worst times of human history. But we can still rebound back to that globalization. And then if you look at, okay, the financial crisis also has been putting a trend of deglobalization. And now we are coming down, obviously. And I recall every time we have a conversation with like historians, they will say, you know, as historians, we study history, go back to centuries of years ago, and then you political scientists only focus on the contemporary times. And if you look at the history, as you still hear, is like there is always a way to solve the problem, and globalization will always come back. So from that sense, I mean, from an economist perspective, do you think that now we are basically in 2024 is just a small decline of globalization? And ultimately, regardless of what might happen, even in the worst scenario, like a war, we will survive and then globalization will come back. I guess that's my question.
Okay, well, the thing is, we also expect that kind of upward trends after a few years when the the global financial crisis took place almost 15 years ago, actually. Already almost 15 years ago, the global financial crisis. But that didn't happen. The trend is getting worse and worse right now. You see, the financial crisis actually did not after the financial crisis, we did not manage to lift up the trend of openness, and it's getting my data is until 2021 or 2022, and I believe if we put more data in the last 2 years, we still see the declining trends of openness, especially when we also look at from the policy side. This is from the performance side. But from the policy side, it becomes more restrictive, more protectionist currently compared to the last, compared to the first decade of 21st century. Yeah.
Thank you, Pak. I mean, Professor Chen, I'm a born pessimist. So no matter what I see, I don't see the optimistic side of the house. But I think the other point I want to add quickly also is, I guess the next war may be a different type of war, and if we're talking about possible nuclear war and things like that, then there may not be a day after. Right? I think somebody, astrophysicist from the United States, said that planet Earth will survive, humanity will not. Right? And yeah. So on that very dismal note, can we have another question from the ranks? Yeah, Deepinder.
Thank you. That was a very interesting talk. And if I may take the other side of the spectrum try to see some hope in the midst of all this gloom. As you mentioned, ASEAN, or hinted at, ASEAN has convening power, particularly since it's sought after by, it's being quoted by all the major powers and the middle powers, including the EU. If you take one sector in specifically, which poses serious, almost existential challenges for the region, and that's the blue economy. Blue economy is, of course, an aspiration, but what's happening to the marine economy? Do you see potential out there for engagement with other powers to make some meaningful progress here? And secondly, you brought up the question of regional cooperation. ASEAN's done extraordinarily well, but it's through engagement with the rest of the world, trade with the rest of the world, we are still drawing huge amounts of investment. Actually, it's gone up. Trade with the United States has gone up. With China, it's gone up hugely, as has investment. Yet, there still remains some low-hanging fruit, and that's because of the lack of internal coordination, reforms within ASEAN, be it services, be it digitization of trade measures. On that point, could you talk about what's hindering this development? there's no political cost to that aside from each country giving up a little bit. So if you could elaborate on that a little bit, that'll be nice. Thank you.
Okay, you mentioned about the blue economy. This is a new ASEAN initiative actually proposed or developed by Indonesia. Considering, given that Indonesia is very have good resources of oceans and maritime, but I'm like many other ASEAN's initiative, I'm a bit skeptic because ASEAN's is good to have new initiative, especially in the economic integrations. But the ASEAN members itself, themselves, they are quite reluctant to put more resources into those initiatives, unless those initiatives can be taken up by bigger countries or our ASEAN partners. That's why it is quite more important for ASEAN to bring it up to higher level or wider regions, including also, for example, the ASEAN +3 or the East Asia Pacific in general, and then get more collaborations, cooperations from bigger countries, bigger economies in these regions. The thing is, with the current geopolitical situations, you normally can only have backup or support from one side of the partners rather than the whole partners. Currently, the one that is quite interested in blue economy, actually China. And maybe China can also will use also this initiative to gain some strategic benefit out of it. Yeah, considering the current situation. So again, it is necessary for ASEAN to invite the partners, to invite greater powers in the regions, but they also need to make it more inclusive and also get more support from all other partners as well. Yeah. On the second one, on regional cooperations, yeah, I think it's quite it's no longer something that ASEAN need to consider. I mean, it's about the existential issues for ASEAN in order to bridge or to elevate the regional cooperations, especially in trying to bridge the gap, the interest from conflicting parties in these regions. Because if the ASEAN is not proactive to cater to these issues, the unity, not only about the centrality of ASEAN, but also the unity of ASEAN will be threatened. And if we have more ASEAN members take side to other to some major powers, then it would be the end of ASEAN and perhaps also the end of stability in this region that had been promoted for the last, I don't know, I think the last war in these regions was 1979, yeah, between China and Vietnam. So we cannot abandon all that kind of progress, the initiative that we have developed so far. So this is now about its necessity for ASEAN to take more proactive actions. But unfortunately, as Pa Adrianus also mentions, what about our leadership? How our leadership also can be convinced that it is time for them to take more active actions, more proactive action.
Thank you, Pak Yose. All right, I see two hands. Maybe I think Gilan first.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Yose. Gilang Kembara from RSIS. I have two brief questions for you. Just number one, can you comment on the effectiveness of the current and recent multilateral economic partnership on whether or not it helps to reduce geopolitical tensions, for example, like RCEP and CPTPP? And also, my second question is, do you think that the future global economic market would be divided along the lines of, let's say, OECD countries and perhaps BRIC countries, or perhaps even a new sort of lines that you can predict? Or maybe I'm wrong in that sense. Thank you.
Well, this economic economic initiative can serve as a platform for a greater understanding, actually, especially on the when we're talking about RCEP. And the thing is, RCEP is unlike many other trade agreements such as CPTPP, it's more than just a trade agreement. It also has been equipped with a structural mechanisms. It also include economic cooperations and capacity building. So that this is one way that can be utilized in order to promote greater cooperations, at least in these regions. But the thing, although RCEP is not include the US here, but RCEP also include many other important economic powers in the region, such as Japan, Australia, as well as Korea and Indonesia, for example. So it can also be utilized to gain greater understanding on how the current economic agreement or current economic situation is not really it's not increasing the tensions, at least not contributing to the escalating tensions, but rather to offer more cooperations. So that's for your first questions. The second questions on the two sides of the global economy. I believe this is partly also because of the fragmentations that we have been discussing so far. The OECD more come from a more developed economies that maintains the economic openness, that maintains more democratic values, including in the economy, while the counter narrative from other countries came up as BRICS, for example. Although the effectiveness of BRICS as a platform to convey the counter narrative is still questionable, because BRICS do not really have a strong narrative that have been brought to other economies, except for improving the global south situations. How to do that and how they would achieve the objective still questionable. And we also have seen that it's not a coherent or monolithic group, since we have China and India that basically still quarrel about anything, including also on the economic issues, and they don't really push for a strong, uniform message to other countries.
All right, we have a question over here first. After that, then we take Karen. Huh?
Sean Ullman from Australia. I think my question's kind of related to the previous one, but a bit more explicit in regards to the blocks. So I really liked your slide with the chart that had, sorry, I've got to get the name of it so we don't go flicking through slides, scenarios of global economic environment. And the trajectory looks like it's heading back down into the bottom corner where you've got separate blocks, and it kind of made me think of John Mearsheimer's work when he talks about bounded, the liberal international order's bound to fail, and then what we'll end up with is two separate blocks, one a US-led bloc and one a China-led bloc. I guess my first question is, do you think that that is a realistic scenario that will end up with two separate blocks? And if it is, what does that Chinese-led bloc actually look like? Because we know what the US one looks like. What does the Chinese one look like? Yeah. Terima kasih.
Thank you for the questions. This is also still, of course, we only just make some scenarios of it. We don't know whether it would lead to that situations or not. But from our discussions, I think it is quite clear that most of the narrative so far, or the measures so far, come from the U.S. side and of course its allies, rather than the Chinese side. That's also the message that Professor Jiat tried to convey yesterday. We haven't seen much from the Chinese side, or from the policy point of view, but I think we can see it from their actions. I think the strategy, economic strategy of China is rather to what you call this, to get economic influence by infighting economies, by including countries to their programs. This is what they're trying to do actually during the Belt and Road Initiative. They're buying or they're inviting other countries to join the programs by giving some money. That kind of things cannot be done by the U.S. The U.S. only can, what the U.S. can do is just try to restrict or try to have some policies in order to facilitate more parties to become one of their group, their bloc. So I believe this is not really this would continue like that, and it would evolve to more fragmentations as well. Although the Chinese do not really have a kind of a strong strategy to have to fight the global economy in general, but as long as the U.S. still try to do that, I think the Chinese would respond by trying to invite more economies and countries into their side as well.
Thank you. Karen?
Thank you, Dr. Yose, for your presentation. I would like my question is going to be about the weaponization of economic policy that you touched upon during your presentation. I'd like to know your thoughts on what would be the practical policy recommendations that you will give to the regional state who may be a victim of the weaponization themselves or suffer from the collateral damage that the weaponization would bring. Thank you.
Well, I think the questions are very tough, tough questions. My suggestions I don't have any suggestion actually to those victims, but maybe my suggestions is actually for those countries who becomes victims do not really add do not really add another or to fuel the sentiments or to fuel the situations to increase to elevate the situations by still staying or still what you call this still observing the kind of multilateral principles that already has been in place so far. Yeah, so so they might be still the victim, but they not really get the situations worse. That's my take on it.
So you're essentially saying that don't rock the boat further, right? You're just saying that. But I think countries who suffer under this type of policy will be under domestic pressure to respond in some way. Right? It's difficult to keep on to the multilateral principle. So maybe I quickly add one question here. So, Yose, so in your view, the WTO is dead?
Well, at least the several agendas of WTO has no longer been in the discussions. At the moment, nobody remembers about the Doha Development Agenda, for example, and like my slides also already shows that the number of the consultations in the WTO has been declining quite significantly, and I also just get impressions that WTO itself now is having difficulties in economic resources to deal with many issues that they are currently facing. So we don't want to have this trade organization die for sure, because it's quite difficult to develop these organizations to build this forum, but I believe this needs to be reformed quite extensively, and the reform of the WTO has been in the agenda of G20 for quite a while now, but the implementations of this reform are still very, very difficult because many member countries also they have their own interests, their own aspirations on how the WTO would be performed or would be in the future. Against I think G20 would can provide political support for a multilateral trading system such as WTO. But we also need to realize that the trade rules and trade norms are now being set up outside the WTO, and then we need to have some kind of mechanisms in order to absorb all those rules and norms that have been developed for the last 10 years outside the WTO into the WTO systems, and this is one of the proposals that have been tried to promote in the WTO, and we still want to see more accommodations of the rules and norms being set up outside the WTO at the moment.
Thank you, Park. Some more questions, please. We still have another 10 more minutes. I think for the multilateral system, Park, I think the challenge is some of the champions of the multilateral system themselves are very skeptical of the value of the system that was created by them in the post-World War.
They are not skeptical, actually. They are the source of the problems on the multilateral systems.
So I think that's really one of the fundamental challenges. You have another question, Prof? Yeah, please. You need the slides again?
Well, I think the question you ask there is really interesting. Is WTO dead, right? I think basically talking about, okay, I think in the wider question is, okay, now we are seeing a rise of a different global economic order or collapse of the previous economic order. And the same question can be asked, is UN about to dead, right? Okay, right, so you are saying, okay, in the war between Ukraine and Russia, the war in the Middle East, where is the role of United Nations, right? We were supposed to be there to maintain world peace. And I think yesterday and the day before yesterday, we talked about potentially there might be some security conflict in Asian Pacific. Will United Nations play a role? Will United Nations play a role there? I think that raises a question. So it's not only global economic order. I think it's genuinely the previous US-led global order is falling down. And we don't know what the new order is going to be. And we are in a process of that. And I think this economic order sits in a wider context. I totally agree with the speaker that we need rules and norms. But I think the question there is whose rules and whose norms, right? I think, yes, in the past few days, we talk about a rule-based international order. If you ask Chinese officials, we'll tell you China fully respects rules-based international order. The question is what rule? China will say the rule should be decided by United Nations. And this is a position that probably United States wouldn't agree. So ultimately, is that a rule-based international order or it's power-based international order? I think that's the question. So, and I think all the problem we're facing now is we don't really have that authority above states that is there, who can really define, okay, this is rules, there's norms, we all should listen to it. And the challenging now is that exactly the failing of this global order is because people will say, okay, those rules, from Chinese perspective, will say those rules and norms are decided by American for American interests. And we want this rule and these norms. I mean, and that can hardly agree. So I think that's the main challenge there is power-based international order instead of a rule-based international order.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then those countries regarded as developing countries in the 1990s, for example, now have become much richer, more power, has more power, and they also have more aspirations that cannot be accommodated by the current global governance. And like, for example, the security a council in the United Nations only consists of five countries, while there are many countries that actually have greater powers at the moment that can also contribute to the world peace and stability. So the thing is how to deal and how to reform this multilateral governance, and whether the existing power that have been behind this global governance would be willing to also accommodate this kind of new aspirations and new interests from newer power.
Any other question? Yes, please.
Thank you very much. I had a question on the OECD. Given that Indonesia has submitted for a session, I wondered what the latest situation is, and also considering how you mentioned that with ascension to the OECD, Indonesia will have to adopt certain core values and norms of the organization, including transparency and the like. I was wondering what you foresee as being some of the biggest challenges for Indonesia to be able to do so, especially bearing in mind the time frame of 2027. And sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Peshmon Iopantong from Deakin University. Thank you.
Well, Indonesia's accessions to OECD can be seen from several perspective point of view. One of the thing is this is one perspective is that this is a way for Indonesia actually to preserve the economic reforms that had been introduced by President Jokowi. As we know, President Jokowi a period will end in a few days, and then he wants to have some legacy, including also to continue the economic reforms that he tried to introduce and push it even further. And then the accessions to OECD would contribute to that. And another things we can also see the accessions for OECD is the way that Indonesia might also show to the global community on how that Indonesia is not really the economic allies of China, not that Indonesia is still being neutral, because you know the Chinese investments have been increasing very significantly in Indonesia during the last 10 years, and sometimes often Indonesia has been regarded as one of the Chinese good boy, especially in the economic aspects. But the accessions to OECD shows us that Indonesia try to be neutral and would like to be neutrals in the futures, at least at the economic point of view. Another thing is also this is also another statement from Indonesia that Indonesia do not really want or do not have an intention to join BRICS, and rather to join OECD. And Indonesia do not want to be a part of the narrative that divides the global economy, and the process itself is still going on, very difficult, I believe, but it would be done in the next 5 or even more years. So many things that we need to do, but this is a a good chance for Indonesia also to live up and to reform its economic environment.
Thank you, Park. It is almost time, and we don't want to be between you and a break before you all go off for your other next activity in the evening. So I'll take the privilege of ending this in the sense of thanking Dr. Yose for giving us some food for thought, a different perspective of the issues facing us. I think I learned many new things. Your slides are fascinating. Today we've seen a lot of different slides, and yesterday we saw other slides, but these are useful slides in terms of the numbers, the data that you have picked up. I think, Park, please continue your good work on the research and to educate us from the economic perspective.
Thank you.
It's something that we shouldn't forget. So can I invite all of you to show your appreciation for Park Yose?
Thank you.